Caroline's body lay lifeless, her face buried into a pillow as her baby cried nearby, completely unaware of the horror happening around her. The house was in disarray, and their family dog, Roxy, hung from a railing, strangled to death. To anyone who saw the scene, it screamed of a brutal home invasion. Except there were no intruders. The real monster was right there, playing the part of the devastated husband. This is the horrifying story of Babis Anagnostopoulos, the man who deceived everyone, even the FBI, into believing his lies. I'll take you through the twisted case of how he nearly got away with murder. I truly could not believe how deep the deception ran in this case. The fairy tale beginning. Caroline Crouch was a bright and lively young girl with big dreams. At just 15 years old, she was busy with school, friends, and the joys of teenage life. Then she met Babis Anagnostopoulos, a 27-year-old helicopter pilot. He swept her off her feet in a way that seemed straight out of a storybook. Babis made a grand gesture by flying a helicopter over Caroline's school, capturing her heart with his charm and adventurous spirit. It was the kind of moment that could make any young girl feel like a princess. Their romance blossomed quickly. Just a year and a half after they met, Babis proposed to Caroline. Even though she was still underage, they decided to elope, getting married in Portugal when she turned 18. The couple appeared to be living a fairy tale life, filled with love and excitement. They shared their journey on social media, showcasing smiling faces and happy moments, which created the illusion of a perfect relationship.
From the outside, it seemed that Caroline and Babis had it all.
Their social media accounts were filled with pictures of adventures, vacations, and family moments, making them seem like the ideal couple. Friends and family admired their love, believing they were living a dream life together. But underneath this shiny surface, trouble was brewing. As I reflect on their story, it is clear that everything seemed perfect from the outside. But as we know, appearances can be deceiving. There were hints of the struggles Caroline faced in her personal life, details that were hidden behind the happy smiles. Her diary entries, which would later come to light, hinted at deep-seated issues in their relationship. They painted a starkly different picture than what their social media portrayed. This contrast between their public image and private reality is often a reminder of how difficult it can be to truly understand what happens behind closed doors. The couple's seemingly fairy tale romance would soon take a dark turn, leading to tragic consequences that shocked everyone who thought they knew them. Life behind closed doors. The life of Caroline Crouch and Babis Anagnostopoulos was not as perfect as it seemed. While they showcased a happy relationship on social media, Caroline's diary told a very different story. Through her handwritten words, we get a glimpse into the troubled life she was living. The contrast between their public image and private struggles is a powerful reminder that we cannot always judge what happens behind closed doors. In her diary, Caroline expressed increasing doubts about her relationship with Babis. She often wrote about their fights, her feelings of being trapped, and thoughts of leaving him. One poignant entry stands out. "I love baby so much that I cannot leave him even though this relationship hurts me." It is clear from these words that her love was intertwined with deep pain and confusion. The struggle between her love for him and the reality of her situation was a heartbreaking conflict that she wrestled with daily. The emotional abuse and manipulation from Babis became evident through Caroline's reflections. Babis controlled many aspects of her life, including their finances. This control was not just about money. It was a way to isolate her from the outside world. Friends and family might have noticed something off, but they could not see the extent of Babis's influence. Caroline felt unable to leave, especially after becoming pregnant. Her desire to provide a stable family for her child made it even harder for her to think about leaving. She believed that staying was in the best interest of her daughter, even if it meant enduring a painful relationship. As I read through her diary entries, it is heartbreaking to think of the emotional turmoil Caroline was living with, while the world thought she had the perfect life. It serves as a reminder that sometimes the happiest pictures on social media hide the deepest sorrows. Many people suffer in silence, unable to share their struggles for fear of judgment or disbelief. Caroline's situation is a stark reflection of how complex love can be. It can be beautiful and fulfilling, yet also painful and suffocating. The struggle to balance love and self-preservation is something many people can relate to, even if they do not find themselves in such extreme circumstances. Caroline's story raises important questions about emotional health and the signs of manipulation in relationships. Her diary entries show that while she was trapped in her circumstances, she was still aware of the toxicity surrounding her. Eventually, the reality of Caroline's life serves as a cautionary tale. It highlights the importance of recognizing unhealthy dynamics in relationships and emphasizes that it is essential to prioritize one's emotional well-being. As the story unfolds, it becomes increasingly evident that the fairy tale life she once seemed to lead was just a facade, hiding a much darker truth. The horrific night of May 11th, 2021. That fateful night started like any other in their suburban home outside Athens. Caroline, babies, and their 11-month-old daughter were asleep, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. The tranquility of their household was shattered by a horrific event that would leave the community in shock. In the early hours, Babis called emergency services. He described a terrifying invasion by 3 masked intruders who had broken into their home. His claims painted a picture of chaos and fear. He said he was tied up while his wife was murdered and their beloved dog was strangled. The scene he created was that of a brutal robbery, with money stolen from their home. However, the graphic details of the crime scene tell a much darker story. When authorities arrived, they found Caroline lying face down on the bed. Beside her, their baby was crying, trying to wake her up. The image of a helpless infant, not fully understanding the tragedy that outspread, is heart-wrenching. The couple's husky puppy had been strangled with a leash, adding to the horror of the situation. The house was ransacked, with signs of a struggle everywhere. A Monopoly box was left open, revealing where the couple had hidden cash. As the police worked at the scene, Babis's initial reaction caught attention. He appeared to be in shock, visibly emotional as he stood near his wife's body. His distress seemed genuine, drawing sympathy from those around him. At that moment, I was completely convinced that Babis was just another victim of a brutal crime. The narrative he presented was compelling, and many people, including investigators, were inclined to believe him. However, as time passed, questions began to arise. The police noticed inconsistencies in Babis's story. Details that seemed solid at first started to unravel. It was strange that a robbery would involve the strangling of a dog and the careful handling of the baby. These aspects did not align with typical criminal behavior. Instead of being a straightforward case, it started to look more compy. The emotional weight of that night affected not only Babis and Caroline's family, but also the entire community. People grieved for the loss of a young mother who had so much life ahead of her. Friends and neighbors found it hard to believe that someone could commit such an act, especially in a neighborhood that felt safe. In the days that followed, as news spread, the focus shifted from the crime itself to the investigation and the man who had presented himself as a grieving husband. Babis was initially seen as a victim, but the more investigators dug into his story, the more they began to question his innocence. This shocking contrast between his public persona and the emerging evidence is something that stays with me. How can someone who appears so devastated be hiding a truth so dark? The complexity of human behavior is often hard to understand, and this case exemplified just how easily appearances can deceive. As the investigation extended, it became clear that the truth was more twisted than anyone could have imagined. The scene of the crime would lead to revelations that no one expected, turning a tragic murder into a gripping tale of deception and manipulation. The investigation and early theories. After the horrific night, the police quickly began their investigation. Babis was a key witness, and all eyes were on him as they tried to piece together what happened. His account of the events guided the initial steps of the inquiry. Investigators listened carefully to every detail he shared about the supposed attack. They started with the belief that professional criminals were involved, based on his description of the intruders. Babies painted a picture of a terrifying home invasion, leading the police to suspect that it was a robbery gone wrong. To support their investigation, the police created a sketch based on Babis's identification of one of the intruders. It looked menacing, which only fueled the community's fear. The thought that dangerous criminals were roaming free made people uneasy. Some investigators even speculated that the intruders might have been high on drugs. This theory seemed plausible, given the chaos of the crime scene. Additionally, there were discussions about Caroline possibly fighting back during the attack, as she had a black belt in kickboxing. This led to the unsettling idea that the intruders could have silenced her because she posed a threat. In the midst of this chaos, a significant development occurred. A Georgian national named Georgi Haragisvili was arrested. His violent criminal history caught the attention of the police, and he bore a resemblance to the intruder sketch. Authorities were eager to see if he had any connection to the crime. The police interrogated Haragisvili, but despite their efforts, he was eventually cleared of any involvement in Caroline's murder. As the investigation progressed, the pressure on law enforcement grew. The public was scared, and they wanted answers. The police faced mounting expectations to find the culprits. Yet, even as they pursued leads, something felt off. Details did not completely fit. And the more they pressed on the theory of intruders, the more it seemed like the pieces of the puzzle were not lining up. At this stage, it really seemed like the police were closing in on these so-called intruders. But something was not adding up. Babis's story, while initially convincing, began to show cracks as investigators looked deeper into the evidence. The absence of DNA or fingerprints, along with the absence of a typical robbery scene, left many questions unanswered. Reading through various reports and updates during this period, I could sense the frustration in the air. The community was on edge, anxiously awaiting news of the investigation. Everyone wanted to believe that the truth would come to light, but the reality was becoming more complicated by the day. As more time passed without answers, it became evident that the case was shifting. The idea of intruders began to waver, and the focus was starting to turn back toward Babis himself. The police had to take a closer look at his actions and the inconsistencies in his account. What had begun as a tragic murder case was transforming into a perplexing investigation filled with twists and turns. The early theories created a false sense of security. The idea that dangerous criminals were at large diverted attention from the possibility that the killer could be much closer to home. The investigation would soon take unexpected turns, leading to revelations that would shock the entire nation. The breakthrough. Babis becomes the suspect. A significant breakthrough in the case occurred when the police began to suspect Babis. Investigators started noticing inconsistencies in his timeline. Security footage from the neighborhood did not match his story. Even more alarming was the discovery of a missing memory card that could have held crucial evidence. This raised many questions. Why was the memory card missing, and what could it have shown? As detectives dug deeper, they analyzed Caroline's smartwatch data. This data provided critical information about the exact time of her death. Surprisingly, it did not align with Babis's account of events. Additionally, the fitness app linked to Babis's smartwatch showed activity during the time he claimed to be tied up, and painted a very different picture than the one he had shared with the police. With each piece of evidence, Babis's story began to unravel. There were several questionable details about how the intruders supposedly entered the home. The lack of fingerprints or DNA evidence made the story even harder to believe. If there were indeed intruders, where was the evidence they left behind? The inconsistencies pointed toward a staged home invasion, leading investigators to think Babis had orchestrated the entire scene to cover up his crime. The moment of confrontation came soon after Caroline's memorial service. Babis was discreetly taken into police custody, shocking everyone present. His facade of a grieving husband began to crack, revealing a different man entirely. In that moment, I could only imagine the emotions swirling around. There was confusion, anger, and sadness, all intermingled as the reality of the situation set in. I never expected what was about to unfold. I mean, who would? A man who had presented himself as the victim was now being treated as a suspect. The shocking twist left many people reeling. As more details emerged, it became clear that Babis's carefully crafted image was nothing but a cover for something far darker. With the police zeroing in on him, I could sense a change in the atmosphere surrounding the case. Friends and family who once sympathized with him were now left questioning everything. How could a person who seemed so devoted turn out to be capable of such horror? The idea that someone could fake their grief while hiding a terrible secret sent chills down my spine. As the investigation progressed, the narrative shifted dramatically. The police had transitioned from believing Babis was a victim to considering him the prime suspect. The evidence was becoming more compelling, and it was difficult to ignore the mounting signs of guilt. What had initially seemed like a tragic crime was evolving into a tale of deception and betrayal, and it felt like a nightmare that was only beginning to disclose. A chilling account of confession. After 8 long hours of intense interrogation, Babis finally confessed to the crime. His story took a dark turn as he claimed that the argument with Caroline began over their daughter. According to him, Caroline had threatened to leave with the child. This claim added a layer of complexity to the situation, but it did not excuse what he did next. Babis portrayed himself as the victim, saying that Caroline had become physically aggressive during their argument. He stated that he lost control and suffocated her. The chilling details he shared were horrifying. He confessed to strangling Caroline with a pillow, a method that spoke volumes about his intentions. After taking her life, he did not stop there. He also staged the entire robbery, going as far as killing their family dog to make the scene appear convincing. His plan involved tying himself up to create the impression of a victim in a home invasion. This act of betrayal against his family was nothing short of shocking. He had orchestrated a scene that would mislead everyone, from the police to the public, into thinking that intruders had brutally attacked his family. It was a cold and calculated attempt to escape justice, and it left me feeling sick to my stomach. During the confession, Babis made some remorseful statements saying, "I deserve to be punished." However, these words felt hollow in light of his actions. How could someone who claimed to love his wife take such a drastic step? The betrayal he displayed was incomprehensible. I could not believe it. How could someone do something like this, especially to the person they claimed to love? It was hard to grasp the reality of the situation. I felt a mix of disbelief and anger. Babis had turned a love story into a nightmare, and his confession was just the tip of the iceberg. It was a chilling reminder of how appearances can be deceiving. The man who once seemed like a devoted husband had become a murderer, and the pain he caused echoed through the lives of many. This was not just a crime, it was a tragedy that would haunt everyone involved. The trial and conviction. The legal aftermath of Babis's chilling confession was swift and severe. He faced multiple charges, including premeditated murder, lying to authorities, animal abuse, and obstructing justice. With the evidence stacked against him, the trial began in May 2022, drawing significant public attention. As the trial unfolded, Babis attempted to shift the blame onto Caroline, portraying her as the aggressor in their relationship. He wanted the court to see him as a man pushed to his limits. However, his defense fell flat. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Caroline's diary entries painted a different picture, showing her struggles and fears throughout their relationship. The smartwatch data also provided crucial information, revealing the timeline of events leading up to her death. It was clear that Babis was the one in control, not Caroline, about their observations of the couple's relationship. They painted a stark contrast to Babis's claims. Many described Caroline as kind and loving, while Babis was often seen as controlling and manipulative. The prosecution presented the case with clarity, making it evident that Babis had planned the crime and executed it with a cold heart. The moment the verdict was read was tense. Babis was found guilty on all charges. The courtroom was filled with emotions as the reality of the situation sank in. For many, it was a moment of justice, but there was also an underlying sadness. Caroline would never have the chance to tell her side of the story. Her life was cut short, and she would not get to escape the life that had become so painful for her. Hearing the verdict brought a sense of relief, but it also left a profound sadness. Caroline never had the opportunity to break free from the life she was trapped in. Her dreams, hopes, and desires were all taken away in an instant. This tragedy affected not only the family but also the community that had come to know and care for her. It is heartbreaking to think about how a love story turned into a nightmare. Babis's actions robbed Caroline of her future and left a young child without a mother. As I reflect on the trial, it serves as a painful reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind closed doors. The truth may eventually come to light, but the scars left behind can last a lifetime. The impact on Caroline's family and society and the aftermath. The emotional toll on Caroline's family has been immense. Her parents, particularly her father, have shared their grief in public statements. They feel a profound sense of betrayal, not just by Babis, but by the circumstances that led to their daughter's death. They had trusted him and believed he loved her, only to discover that he had deceived everyone. This betrayal has left them shattered and searching for answers. Babis's initial public support of the police investigation is now seen as part of his web of deception. He presented himself as a grieving husband while hiding the truth about what happened that night. This duality has made the pain for Caroline's family even more difficult to bear. They lost their daughter and now face the challenge of reconciling the image of Babis they once had with the reality of who he truly is. The impact on society has been equally significant. The case shocked many, creating fear and uncertainty. People in Greece and beyond were captivated by the details of the crime. It became a media sensation, with news outlets covering every aspect of the investigation and trial. The intense coverage sparked discussions about domestic violence and the signs that can often go unnoticed. As the truth emerged, there was a sense of closure for some, but it came at a heavy price. Reflecting on the situation, it is heartbreaking to consider the people left behind. Caroline's family and her young daughter, who will grow up without her mother. The trust that was broken extends beyond individuals. It touched an entire community. This case shook not only Greece but also resonated with people around the world, reminding us of the importance of recognizing the signs of trouble in relationships. It serves as a painful lesson about the fragility of life and the darkness that can hide behind a smile. Lessons to learn and final thoughts. Babis and Agnostopoulos managed to fool everyone, from the police to the public and even the FBI. This case serves as a stark reminder of the dangers that come with hidden abuse. Many people only saw the smiling couple on social media, unaware of the turmoil that was happening behind closed doors. It is a wake-up call that teaches us to pay attention to the signs of emotional and physical abuse, even when they are not immediately visible. While this story has reached its conclusion, the impact will last forever. The tragedy of Caroline's life and death will continue to resonate, serving as a reminder of the importance of addressing domestic violence and emotional abuse. It is crucial for viewers to take these issues seriously, as they can happen to anyone. If you or someone you know is in a dangerous situation, please seek help. There are resources and organizations available to provide support and assistance. You do not have to face this alone. If you found this story compelling, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel. Stay informed about similar cases and learn more about the issues that matter.